So, My Hero Academia manga chapter 322 is translated. We have the chapter, and boy oh boy is this going to be an emotionally impactful chapter. Oh, so many feels. And you're also going to feel the feels as I give you the review of this chapter right after this new intro. Guys, it's your boy, Manga Man Drew, here to talk to you about My Hero Academia manga chapter 322. Yes, this is going to be the review for that chapter. A lot goes down in this chapter, not like from the bigger story scope of like Deku being a hero, him trying to defeat Shigaraki, not necessarily that, but just the small version of it, the smaller aspects of it, the characters, the characterization, because in this chapter, boy oh boy, do we get a lot of characterization for one specific hero. Who is it? Well, you're going to have to wait to find out, but yeah, there's a lot of characterization. We get a lot of reveals in this chapter about UA and another character who gets a face reveal, so that's going to be very interesting, as well as we get to see the UA barrier in action, and ooh, Shigaraki's gonna have a lot of trouble getting through that. Heck, I don't even think All For One can do it. So yeah, we'll talk about that a little bit more, but a few things that I want to bring up prior. First of all, I'd like to thank Rangy17 Go Ro Go for the new intros. He's the one that created them. I really love them. Hopefully you enjoy them. So go give him some support on TikTok as well as on YouTube. That's going to be very cool. And if this is your first time seeing one of my videos, I'd like to ask you, if you haven't done so, to subscribe to my YouTube channel if you like My Hero Academia reviews. I try to do these reviews every time the initial translations of them come out, so if this is something that you like to see, subscribe to my YouTube channel. And with that out the way, let's get right into the review. So, we start the chapter off the same way we ended last chapter, with Deku holding Ida's hand, crying like a baby, as we get his inner monologue about how he wants to let go, but he literally doesn't have the strength to do it, as we get the title of the chapter being chapter 322, Great Explosion Murder God Dynamite. Yeah, I think we spoiled what the big emotional impact is going to be in this chapter, and let me just say, you are not prepared for this. So yes, at the beginning of the chapter, we get the continuation of what happened last chapter, with Deku being held by Ida's hand, as we see that Uraraka has released her zero gravity, as we see them plummeting towards the ground. But luckily enough, Kirishima is there to capture him, and I'm like, wait 1 second, how the heck did Kirishima get there so fast? Even Ida begins to question like, wait 1 second, is that Kirishima? How did he get here? But luckily enough, Kirishima's there because he's the one that catches both Ida and Deku. As we get this big explosion, Kirishima catches both of them and immediately begins to explain to Midoriya about, hey Midoriya, when I was in middle school, there was this kid that I heard about on the news that saved his friend from a slime villain. That was you, wasn't it? As we finally get the connection that Kirishima had with Deku during Kirishima's flashback during the overhaul arc, where it's finally revealed by Kirishima to Deku that, oh yeah, that was you, wasn't it? Yeah, because of that kind of got me out of this slump, and when it came to your attitude back then, yeah, it's pretty much key to like why all of this is even happening now, so you know, we're here for you, dude. So yeah, we finally get to have the moment with Kirishima that we've all been looking for, so that's great. And we also get to the moment where you have Ida questioning how Kirishima was able to get there, where Kirishima just explains like, oh yeah, it never told me to come here. It was a coincidence. I really hope that's a translation issue, because that makes Kirishima seem very suspect, but I think it makes a lot more sense because immediately after he says that, we literally see everyone in Class A coming, which is very important because if you remember what literally just happened last chapter, most of Class A sent Ida flying into the air to catch up with Deku, and yet now they're casually catching up to him after they've fallen and hit the ground. So, you know, Deku, maybe you were wrong about saying that they can't keep up because they literally just caught up with you. So yes, we have Class A arriving, and we do get to have a small moment with Mina. Basically, Mina says that Deku doesn't need to do this alone and that he can come back to UA where they can have classes together, but then we just have Midoriya Midoriya not responding initially, but then immediately afterwards saying that, yeah, no, he can't do this anymore. He can't go back. If he goes back, it'll be dangerous for the people at UA. He doesn't want to cause any more trouble. He doesn't want to go back to UA. But then you have Bakugo coming in. And so from here, this is going to be a large chunk of this chapter. Just Bakugo speaking to Deku, and what he says to Deku is amazing and is emotional. And to sum up what he says, Bakugo tells Deku what he needs to say to him when he was stabbed by Shigaraki about how he doesn't need to do this alone. And we have Bakugo reflecting upon his life up until this moment, everything that he's done to Deku, how he viewed Deku as being lower than him because he's quirkless, and how when Deku tried to help him, he always thought that Deku was looking down upon him, and how he wanted to recognize that he was stronger, that he didn't have any weaknesses, but then over time he realized that he did have weaknesses, and how he lost to Deku, which made him think that he wasn't superior when he thought he was supposed to be. And as we see that, we also get to see them going from little children to being in middle school to being at UA and then being heroes. We have Bakugo finally coming to this conclusion that the thing that he wanted to tell him and that what he really thought about Deku was wrong. But what is interesting about this, after he says all of that, he doesn't call Deku Deku, he calls him Izuku, which is immediately followed with, "I'm sorry for everything that I've done." This is something that the My Hero Academia fandom has been waiting for. We've been craving. We've been wanting this for so long. Ever since Bakugo has gone through the character development. Ever since Bakugo and Deku's last fight, with them fighting in the middle of the building, where Bakugo won that fight and confirmed themselves as being rivals. Ever since that moment, we've been waiting for him to apologize, and he does, and it's amazing, and oh my gosh, I love My Hero Academia! So yeah, Bakugo apologizes to Deku, and continues on his monologue by saying that, yeah, Deku, everything that you, the previous users did, yeah, y'all were right about that, you weren't misguided. The only difference is, you can't do it on your own. You can't be like All Might. You can't do it on your own. That's the one thing that's a flaw with it. But, you know, if something bad happens or you hit a road bump, just realize that to surpass your ideal hero of All Might, yeah, just rely on us. Let us take on some of that burden. For you to be better than All Might, not only do you have to protect UA and the civilians, but you also have to win and beat All for One. And then after Bakugo has given this riveting speech and this apology to Deku, Deku's just like, but I'm like, really, Deku? Really? They literally just caught up to you. How are you saying, oh wait, no, I need to continue. You guys can't keep up. I'm sorry. Oh, okay, yeah. He also apologizes. So Deku apologizes to everyone for saying that they couldn't keep up and that was something horrible for him to say. As soon as he says that, he immediately begins to pass out. But luckily enough, just ending this moment with Bakugo catching Deku. Ah, gosh. The only flaw with all of this is that the shippers now have more fuel to ship them together. This is going to be horrible moving forward when it comes to those shippers. Oh well, what are you to do? Shippers are gonna ship. But what is very interesting after that moment is that we get to focus on Uraraka, because of course we do, as we have Momo saying that, yeah, it's just gonna get worse from here, foreshadowing what's going to be happening at the end of this chapter as Uraraka agrees with her. So we cut to black. Deku is beginning to open his eyes. We get to see the perspective of what he's looking at through his eyes, as he also gets to hear everyone saying, oh my gosh, he's waking up. Oh, thank gosh, we're almost at UA. As he's like, oh yeah, there's number 13. Oh, number 13, he's waking up. As we finally get to see number 13's face, and yeah, he or she is very cute. I'm assuming that number 13 is a she, but I could be wrong. But yes, number 13 is awake, and we kind of get a status report of everything that's going on, which is very interesting because she is most likely talking to Deku, and I'm probably going to use she pronouns. She's most likely talking to Deku and conveying information to him that he wouldn't know because he's been on his own the entire time. So it's very interesting because number 13 is going to be sort of kind of, for the next few pages, the mouthpiece for more information that we as the readers don't know, but because we're seeing it through Deku's perspective, this is also information that Deku doesn't know. And this information pertains to UA and everything that's going on around UA, where we get to learn that the people that are still remaining outside are the anti-hero vigilantes, which explains why Endeavor brought that term up with Kirishima last chapter, because those people were most likely anti-hero vigilantes. She also explains that there are also an extremist group that has become very violent alongside the prisoner escapees. So from what we're understanding, there are those three different sections that are still outside of UA. As we cut over to UA, as we see that it's very different, as it's explained that this is the UA barrier. As we get a little bit more information about what's going on in the world, as number 13 explains to Deku that what he really did outside of UA when it came to capturing the villains really helped the heroes and the police, and how there's actually not that many people left outside the walls of UA. And let me just say this, from what we see with this one panel of the UA barrier, yeah, I can understand why Nezu was very, very adamant about UA being a safe haven. Because if you just look at this, this isn't a shit brick house. This is literally a fortress. And is later explained that this fortress extends to Shiketsu, which, let me remind you, is classified as the UA of the West or the East, I forgot where UA is, but of the opposite direction, meaning that it literally spans probably most of Japan. So yeah, I can see why Deku and why everyone else wants Deku to go to UA, because I don't even think Shigaraki, even with his decay, can break through all of that at once. So yeah, I think they're at good hands. So yes, now they're about to enter UA. We have everyone basically telling Deku that this is even half of what it can do, and how something like this would even freak him out. And after they all tell him this, Deku just in his mind is thinking he wants to meet Class A's expectations, but says that going back is not an option for me, as everyone explains that it's very noisy inside. As we get that, yeah, Deku is right, he may not be able to go back because now we have the individuals inside of it, most likely more of the anti-hero vigilantes, which are also now being put inside UA, coming out, blocking Deku from coming in, saying that they cannot let this boy in because they connect the dots, and saying that this boy is connected to Shigaraki and that they can't let him in. And we just have Deku with this expression on his face just like, yeah, I knew this was going to happen. As we even have Present Mike who's trying to calm them down, as we just have these people just screaming at Deku to like go home, that they don't want him here. As we have some people saying, well, we were guaranteed safety here, but they're like, how can we be safe with that thing, with it here? That if that thing is here, that is what Shigaraki is after. It's a ticking time bomb. If you want to hide him, literally hide him somewhere else. As we see Deku like about to turn back because he has this realization that, yeah, I knew this was gonna happen. But right before that happens, Uraraka just grabs his hand and tells him to not worry, as now we get Uraraka's sort of small moment of how she's thinking about Itakun, everyone, Bakugo, how they made all of this possible, and how she won't let go of Deku anymore, and how they can't, and how we get her resolution, her resolve, her new goal of being the hero that wants to save other heroes, as we see her asking the question inside of her head of who will save heroes when they're the ones in trouble. And this may be implying that Uraraka is going to be the one to stand up and stand against these people blocking their way and tell them what's what. And that, if that happens, will be very impactful coming off of this chapter, as the chapter has ended now. So, overall, this was just an emotional chapter. Not a lot of action happened, but all that action was just substituted for character growth, character development, character realizations, and an apology. And like I said, Bakugo's apology is something that everyone in My Hero Academia fandom has been waiting for, and it was used very effectively, tying into everything that we've known about Bakugo, how he's really self-conscious about his abilities, and how he always viewed Deku as being lesser than him, but as Deku began to grow and at some point surpass him, he felt as if he was the one that was inferior, and that made him feel bad, which, to be fair, it makes sense for why he would feel like that in this hero-based society. He was always praised for having an amazing quirk and that he would be this great hero, but then some kid that's quirkless comes in and tries to be better than him. Yeah, it kind of messed with him psychologically, and he finally came to a realization that, oh, I did some horrible stuff. My mindset was incorrect. I think I was just jealous of this kid. I'm sorry. And it's just very cool to see how much Bakugo has grown, because he doesn't say this with any anger, with any malice. He isn't even yelling at Deku. The fact that he calls Deku Izuku is proof that everything that he said was genuine, and that's what made it great. And he doesn't even chastise Deku for what he did. He even says that what he was doing was actually right, but that he needs something more. He says, for the most part, that Deku was trying to be All Might, but Deku should be more than All Might. And the way for him to be more, to be better, to surpass All Might is to ask for help. Because that's the one thing that All Might really didn't do. He did the opposite. He pushed people away. So it's very cool to see that characterization of Bakugo in this chapter, and it was just amazing. But that doesn't mean that everything else in the chapter wasn't amazing. We got to get a little bit more conflict between Deku going back to UA, where it isn't concretely that Deku is going back to UA. Most likely he is, but what's also very cool is that even though all of the Class A did all of this to try to get through the Deku, they sort of did, but it still didn't change his mindset. He allowed himself to go with them to UA, but he still was a little bit hesitant. He still thought it was best for him not to go to UA, but he doesn't bring up the idea that he doesn't want them to help him. At the very least, what I think is going to happen is that Deku's going to stay at UA for a little while, recover, and he's going to go out on his own, but he's not going to do it by himself. He's going to do it with his other classmates. So there may be a rotation of them doing it. That would be very cool. But I think most likely what we're going to see a little bit more is showing Uraraka going in conflict with these anti-hero vigilantes that are now in UA and confront them about their ideas and try to convince them that, yeah, no, it is best for him to be here, because if he dies out there, he's our only hope of stopping All for One. So it's a risk that we have to take because it will benefit everyone in the long run. So most likely from what we're seeing with the end of the chapter, Uraraka is going to be in this aspect of this conflict, trying to convince everyone there to allow Deku to stay, which would mean that Deku would be more willing to stay if everyone else wants him. Also, forgot to say, we got to see 13's face. She's a cutie. Enough said. Also, you know, the small fact that we get to see all of Class A keeping up with Deku, which ties into Deku finally apologizing for the terrible thing that he said, because yes, they can still keep up with him. So yeah, that's pretty much all I really have to say about this chapter. Hopefully you enjoyed this chapter. Hopefully you enjoyed this video, this review. I really enjoyed this chapter. Even reading it now, I just felt all of these emotions. Even though I saw the spoilers, I could still feel the emotions in my heart. And hopefully you could feel sort of kind of the same way. Or maybe I made you feel that way with this video. Hopefully I did, because that would be really cool. So yeah. Like I said, that's all I really have to say about this chapter. Very good chapter, very good emotional beats, very good characterization, and very good points to push the story forward when it comes to the anti-hero civilians. So let me ask you, what do you think is going to go down next chapter? Do you think that Uraraka is going to be the one to convince the people at UA to allow Deku to stay? Do you think that Deku's actually going to leave and Class A is going to follow them while trying to heal him up and do all of that cool stuff? And what do you think that number 13 is going to do? Do you think that she's going to be an exposition mouthpiece? Because with her ability, yeah, I would like for her to be a little bit more in the story. So yeah, leave your thoughts down in the comments down below. Leave a like on this video if you liked it. Subscribe to my YouTube channel and hit that notification bell to be notified for whenever I upload more content like this. Do all that cool jazz, and hopefully I'll be able to catch you in my next video. Goodbye!